You go with the University of Texas. They are on FanDuel, plus 280 to win the conference, along with the University of Georgia. But when you look at Texas, you have picked them to win the SEC. I ask you why.
I think that looking at how this team is transitioning from last year into 2025, they're returning a lot of important players at key positions. And most importantly, this has been a driving force for discussion this offseason for us. They're one of the few teams that's bringing back like really crazy blue chip talent. We're talking about Colin Simmons, who was unbelievable as a rotational pass rusher last year as a true freshman. We're talking about Anthony Hill, a former 5-star linebacker who's a battering ram. We're talking about Ryan Wingo at wide receiver, who did some nice things as a true freshman. And of course, Arch Manning at the helm. I know that they're moving on from a couple of offensive linemen, and I think that's where some people might have some pause. But where this team has been in recruiting, there are a lot of guys coming up next that might be even better than the group that they had last year. Tyler Gooseby is one that I have my eye on from a draft perspective. That kid is freaking gifted. Could have a little bit of an Amarius Mims type jump after seeing a little bit of action at the end of the season for the Longhorns. My biggest reason, though, Blake, I think a lot of times it's hard to invest in a first-time starter. There's a number of first-time starters at the top here. Arch Manning is one of the few guys that I'm willing to bet on, because he has been around the game for so long and has such a natural ability to impact the game. And more importantly, was behind Quinn Ewers, made a lot of back-breaking mistakes that killed them last year. I think that Arch is going to reel it in a little bit better. Having exposure to what he needs to improve on will be a driving force for them to win the SEC.
In my notes, I have Georgia at 1A. I have Texas at 1B. I don't really care where you put either one of them. If you told me today Texas won and I went to Coma, or if I went to Coma today, I woke up in December, mid-December, and you said Texas won, it would be the least shocking thing that you would have told me. If you told me it was Georgia, it would be the most shocking thing that you would have told me. The thing for me about Texas is simple. Everybody wants to talk about Arch. Everybody wants to talk about Wisner and Baxter at running back. You know, the camp intel is that Baxter has looked really good. Sark even made it a point twice in his post-practice interview to bring up Baxter twice, unheralded to the actual question. The thing with Texas that continues to get missed, and it's all about the offense with Sark and the Ryan Wingo, and you're replacing the offensive line. You listen to anything about Texas at SEC Media Days. It's all about the offense because the golden child is here. I like Arch Manning. Have followed him living inside the state of Louisiana for a lot longer than most. I think he's going to be highly gifted. Everyone believes he's going to be highly gifted. The reason that Texas is a true contender is because of their front seven. That is where they're going to make their hay. Everybody wants to focus on Arch. Everybody wants to focus on Ryan Wingo. You talked about Gooseby being at left tackle, replacing Kelvin Banks, whatever they're going to do there. You're right. We can go there. Joe, they're returning more production in their front seven than anybody. You look at the two edge guys that almost had, one did have double-digit sacks, and the other is on the way there. They didn't even start. You got the edge guys coming back that did start. They've done really well, in my opinion, whether it be portal or just in recruiting and recruiting inside that interior. What is Anthony Hill in year 3? There are so many different things. Now, you look at their DB room, okay, for what it's worth. You got a lot of guys that return, but you also have some guys that you got to replace. What is Kobe Black out there at the boundary? You do have some safeties returning. Can Derek Williams find his way back? What is the 5-star in Jonah Williams? Joe, to be real with you. So we'll find that out. But the bottom line is right now to me, this front seven might be the best in the entire country, and I think that they are. If you look up in December and Texas is able to overcome Georgia, Bama, LSU, whoever it may be, it's going to be because that front seven dominated the way that we think that they dominated. Again, I like Arch, but the reason, Joe, that I know that you have them winning and I do not, I need to see them get past Georgia. I will talk about Georgia later, But I do think from some things that Georgia and the depth that they have, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I'll get to it in a minute. I need to see Texas overcome them first. Can you win the conference? Can you win the SEC? They surely can, and I believe that they're talented enough to do it. I need to see you go into Georgia twice and do it, whether it be in Atlanta or you start dominating and you take it to them in Athens. Regardless of where it is and when it is, you got to go to the state of Georgia twice to take it from them, and I think you can do it. The question is, will you be able to do it this season?
To toss in there for anyone wondering what the projected win totals, Texas is 9.5 on FanDuel, and I think that they're going to crush that. I think you brought up the key part here, though. The front seven that Texas has is going to be the driving force. And we're about to talk about Georgia in a second. I think that this front seven is comparable to, I'm not comparing it to the Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis defensive lines. I'm not doing that. But this front seven is not far off from some of the really gifted, explosive front sevens we saw from Georgia when they were right on the front door of winning a national title, and when they were getting to national titles in those first years of that stretch. They had high 4 stars, 5-star guys at key positions that were flying all over the field in their front seven, just making plays. That's what this group has. They're going to kick ass, and they're going to really dominate and out physical a lot of teams in their schedule. I understand where you're coming from, though. Like, I totally get where this does come down to the nut cutting time of, can you beat Georgia? You're going to have to play them twice. I think that a lot of people would agree with us that they're probably going to have to play them twice in the SEC championship game outside of having to travel to Athens. It feels like after losing twice last year, that Sark is the type of coach that is going to be so motivated and locked in to not let that get to him this time around. I'm kind of banking on that. And I'm putting faith in it, but it feels like one of those situations where he is going to be so focused on Georgia solely that they're going to have to get them at some point and get them in the SEC championship game. Like, I would be shocked if they lost to them twice again.
I wouldn't.
That's what I'm getting at.
It happened to Kirby with Nick. It wouldn't.
But eventually Kirby broke through.
Yeah, but in a national title game. Like, it took him literally 4 tries to do it. And he's only done it once.
Okay.
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you're going to have to show me that you can go into Athens and do it. Look, I'll tell you, and I'm going to repeat this against Georgia. When it came down to it for me, it was that you're going on the road to Athens. Bottom line. That's what it came down to me. I'm like, look, man, these teams are so close. This game's at home. Georgia went on the road and beat you in your old place. They did. Now, Joe, I want to see what happens with their offensive line. Can they run the football? Both of these teams have these issues. Can you run the football against a really good team? Can you find ways to run the football? Because, Joe, if you can't, you're going to find yourself exactly where you were. Can Baxter and Wisner both do that? We'll 100% see. But, again, the one thing that also I want to point out, a lot of people talk about, like, Texas isn't I don't want to say that they're not replacing a lot, because they are. You had one of the top tackles in the country that left and got drafted. But, Joe, Makuba and Barron had 10 interceptions combined, right? I'm not saying that their secondary is going to be bad in the slightest, but there's a lot of production that you got to overcome. I do think their front seven is legit, but here's the great thing about Texas more than anything. We get to find out very early because they go on the road to Ohio State. We'll find out a lot about this team.
Well, and Elks shot us a super chat about this, that what happens if Arch does struggle and things don't look that good against Ohio State. I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I don't think we're going to get struggle from Sane and Arch. I think it's going to be a pretty good battle between the two of them. But to what you just said, we're going to know immediately. Like, we're going to know immediately if it's going to be a long season of frustration and question marks and talking about liabilities that are holding them back. Or we're going to spend the whole season talking about their O-line being dominant, their run game being dominant, their D-line being overwhelming, Arch looking fantastic. how they play in that first game. There's no slow walk up to getting ready for the season. This is the truest test that you can get going on the road to Ohio State.
Agreed. But if we're talking about preseason comps to Elks, as an example, and talking about Ohio State, you just won a national title with someone who got benched at Kansas State. So, like, what I'm not going to do for Arch is I'm not going to take 1 week of him starting and him being in his true, real first start and say, like, oh, the writing's on the wall for Arch Manning. You know, and I'm not saying Elks is saying that, but if that were to happen and he quote unquote looks bad, there will be a couple of different talking points. Hey, man, he's a young QB. Like, I literally saw Peyton Manning go on the road against Florida and look like straight garbage. Like, his own uncle did it in the SEC. His own uncle did it when he tried to go up against a Big Ten team. I mean, I'm not just going to throw out the baby with the bathwater because he has a bad start. The good news is he kind of did get a couple of starts, I guess, last season to get his bearings under him to see, I guess, what happens here.